Ooh, 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 ooh. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wine and Reads, sponsored by Woe Nelly Media's online community, the Writers Room. The Writers Room is a online community through Facebook, a Facebook group that is geared toward peer-to-peer education, which means that we are harboring a safe space for writers to come where they can feel not critiqued. They can get criticism, constructive criticism, see that, without fear of negativity and hostility or competition. It's a very positive space so far. For the most part, we've had no drama. We have an event like this every week, whether it is a live reading of a script, a novel, poem, poetry. We have workshops that we do. We have seminars that we do. We have some upcoming seminars on research for writers, a lot of wonderful things like that. And we are doing this in an effort to inspire people to actually write. The thing about a lot of people is that want to write, they either feel like they aren't good enough or they don't know where to start. And this essentially is just to say, just sit down and start writing. I'm sure what you're thinking is going to be horrible, not going to be horrible at all, and you're not going to know what works until you try and find out what doesn't. So that's the goal, to get you to be inspired and write. So today we're going to have like a little back and forth Q&A. And we're going to also take your questions live. If you're watching and you have any questions, just type them in the chat and we'll try to answer them. Sometimes they don't show up on the chat. So if we find them later, we'll answer them later. Feel free to invite friends. We're going to be talking to start off about a teaser. Now, when you're writing a screenplay, specifically for television, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, specifically for television, your teaser is going to be your first 5 pages. Now, in television is much different from, say, a movie or, say, a stage play, because once you go to the movies or a stage play, you've already bought your tickets. Even if the first 5 minutes aren't thrilling, you're going to sit and you're going to stay because you've already bought your ticket. But on TV, if you don't grab your audience like this, they're gone. So we're here to talk about how to make a compelling introduction that grabs your audience, but also it's not just about your audience, it's also about your sellability. If your teaser's not interesting and the producer has 20 scripts on his desk, that's it. That's your chance to make that good impression. So without further ado, I'm going to hand things over to Liz and she will take it from there. Liz?
Yeah, happy to take it over. So yeah, like Daria said, we're going to be talking about your teaser or your cold open today. And the cold open or the teaser is the first thing, very much like you just said, that the audience sees when they start watching your show, and it's also the first thing the reader reads when they're going through your script to make sure it's worth its salt. So the biggest part of the teaser is that it has to hook the viewer from the start and communicate a lot of the tone and the story without too much legwork. It's ideal if it feels very seamless and flawless. It's one of the most defining, it is the defining thing that separates movies from TV in terms of writing. And it happens right before the title sequence. It does occur in both comedy and drama pilots. And there are 3 specific types of teasers. Your first teaser is your standalone. It doesn't have anything to do with the episode, but it sets up your characters and your world. The second type is going to be, it's the version that sets up the gist of the episode that follows. So let's say if you wanted to, like in Desperate Housewives, how the teaser of that sets up that there is a murder. these are the women involved, and then we're going to hop into all of that, and it just seamlessly takes you into the drama of that. The third type of teaser is the version that actually takes events from the end of the episode and puts them at the very beginning, and it gets the reader and viewer very excited to figure out who your characters are and how they got into that predicament and see what happens next. So your teaser is going to be separate from your act breaks. Typically in TV television structure, you're going to do either a 3, 4, or 5 act structure, and your teaser is going to be separate from that. If you're watching this, yes.
So for the act structure, those are generally, I know it's different now because of streaming services, but that's generally where your commercial break would have been.
Right. Right. Your act breaks are also your ad breaks.
Okay.
Yeah, and if it's a half hour or 1 hour, depending, it can vary between the 3, 4, or 5 act structure. There's also some other structures available, but for the sake of this conversation, we're just going to keep it nice and simple. And so with that, I would recommend, if you're looking for some strong teaser examples, hop on YouTube, and for comedy, look at the Big Bang Theory and The Office as 2 key examples of really, really great comedy teasers. And then if you want to look for dramas, I would look at both Game of Thrones and Breaking Bad. And all you have to do is just go to YouTube and type in teaser followed by that television episode. Or, I'm sorry, teaser followed by the television show's name. It'll pop up. 9 out of 10 times you'll find it with commentary breaking it down. Breaking Bad is honestly one of the most iconic opening sequences ever because it's so quick and compelling, and you just get the full scope of everything. Same with Game of Thrones, because Game of Thrones.
Other you said? Oh, that. I'm sorry. Keep going.
Yeah, Game of Thrones and Breaking Bad, and then for comedy, The Office and Big Bang Theory. Game of Thrones. Yeah.
Can I say something really quick about the Game of Thrones teaser? The interesting thing about teasers is that there's this idea that they have to set up everything in your world, everything that's going to happen. So the interesting thing about the Game of Thrones teaser is, now if you haven't seen it, spoiler alert, but in the teaser, you meet a White Walker. There's these 2 knights and they're somewhere random and they get killed or attacked by a White Walker. But the White Walkers aren't crucial to the story until literally like 3 or 4 seasons later. But if you don't introduce something in your teaser, especially if it's a supernatural or science fiction aspect, then for the audience, it seems like when you introduce that thing later, it's totally out of left field. So if you have something that is going to be a total shock to your world at some point as you're writing, make sure that at least there's a hint toward it in your teaser. Okay, that's all I want. I just want to say that.
No, 100%. And I think it's important when you go forward into writing your script, keep your teaser as your baby, because it doesn't have to necessarily be 5 pages at all. It can really be at whatever length feels comfortable to your story. I would not recommend making it very long. Lately, I've seen teasers be about 1.5 to 2 pages, but it can vary. But the basic thing is that you really want to make it the shining example of what your series is, specifically a pilot. Because a lot of times, if you send your script to an agent or to a development office or to a client, anywhere, 9 out of 10 times, they're not going to read your whole script. Your first 5 pages and your last 5 pages are the most important in terms of selling it as a piece of work. And then your teaser, especially because it is this window into this world that you're creating, it's really going to be the thing that sells your script home.
Okay. Now you started with number 1. You said step 1 was to hook the viewer from the start.
Yes.
Do you have a step 2?
No,
if we don't, that's fine.
No, I don't. I have the 3 different types of the teasers is what, and
okay.
I can go back through those again. You have the standalone, which doesn't have anything to do with the episode, but it sets up your characters and your world. You have your second version, which sets up the gist of the episode that's going to follow. And then you have the teaser, the true teaser, which has events that happened at the very end of the pilot happening first, and then cutting to the title. For the last one, the third one, it's when you take events like your climax, basically, at the very end of your pilot and put it at the very beginning. And I just realized as I'm doing this, it's opposite on the screen because we're married. So yeah, take my hands out of the picture. It's great. Yeah. And so you're with that specific one, you're just taking your most exciting moment from your script, putting it at the beginning, using it as kind of an introduction into what you're going to do, and then you go to your titles, and then you start your story.
Okay. I think it's interesting. One of my favorite teasers is actually the Buffy the Vampire teaser. Because that sets up so many aspects of it. Like the way the teaser works is there's these two young high school kids. They're sneaking into the high school to like make out and be all, you know. And then the girl high schooler hears something and she turns around. She's like, "Oh no, you know, what was that?" And the guy says it was nothing. And then when he turns back to look at her, she's a vampire, and she kills him. Right. And the reason I like that teaser is because it sets up the comedy, it sets up the horror aspects, it sets up the supernatural aspects, and it also gives you that campy kind of feeling that, and not campy, but so much that you're not going to be able to, everything's not going to be as expected. You would have expected someone like to jump out of the bushes or something like that. Not the bushes, a locker. Hello, Genesis. How are you? Yes. So in continuing our writing for the screen, and like I said, if anyone's watching and you have any questions, please type them in the comments and we will answer them for you. So when writing a teaser, I really like to, I like to personally be very provocative in the teaser. Like if you start, to me, I like a good mid-action teaser, like, because I'm more of a writer for sci-fi action thriller things. I love coming into a battle or coming into a chase or coming into something because the conflict is already there. We already have high stakes for the characters. They know what they're trying to get in there. And there's already and when you're talking about high stakes in a situation in any storytelling example, high stakes are going to involve the character has an objective. The objective has an obstacle. Therefore, the character has to take action to overpower the obstacle. And then the result of that is the conclusion. And in a teaser, if you set up those three things, then in my opinion, you'll already have a compelling story.
For sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And I think that that's also advice that you can use into breaking down your acts individually as well. And I think it's important, especially in your teaser, to not only break down plot-wise what's happening, but also like the tone overall, especially in terms of your characters and the way that they're going to be using their environment going forward. So yeah.
Okay. Right before, so we're gonna read off some questions that we have that are just basic screenwriter questions that are commonly asked questions for screenwriters, and then we'll discuss them. And then if you have any questions in the comments, like I said, once again, just ask and we will put them up on the screen and we will answer them. Okay. So question one, it says when you're editing directions/transitions judiciously, but this person says, I just read a produced script by William Goldman that has tons of cut twos. So when you're writing in a screenplay, what is the balance that you should strike between how to tell the camera to do something? Because the rule of thumb is that you don't tell the camera what to do at all, at least not in the early stages. That comes later once the cinematographer, the director of photography, and the director are involved in the project. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right. So for writers out there who have difficulty doing that, what would they do? So do you want to do the share screen and kind of come up with an example of what not to write and then what to write?
Sure.
I got a share screen. I got a share screen.
Oh, you got it? Okay, cool.
Yeah, I got it. Boom.
Great.
Okay.
Perfect. So let's say that we are interior living room, interior house, common room, living room.
I was like, how do you spell common?
Whichever, yeah, living room, common room, whatever.
Okay. What time of the day?
Day. Just put day. We'll keep it nice and easy. So what you don't want to do is the camera pans down and focuses on Durier's face as he types on his computer.
Oh, would this all be capitalized technically, right?
Well, I mean, we wouldn't. Yeah.
Yeah. What was the last part?
Focuses on Durier's face as he's typing.
Okay. What would you write in? So this is what not to do.
Don't do that. Yeah, the last thing that you want to do is tell your cameraman what to do, because it's offensive, and it also kind of creatively truncates it because there's no further collaboration process in terms of what it could be. So
at this point, you're basically directing.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, there's one of two things that you could do. If that camera angle is absolutely necessary in terms of storytelling, then you could put angle on colon Durier typing on his computer. If it's not,
why does this work more than? Why does this? Sorry, can you see what I highlight?
Yes.
Why does this work more than this?
Because you're not implying camera movement.
Okay.
You're saying this specific shot is necessary for a reason, and we can totally talk about that. But just mark that in your head. Another option, if it's not super important for you to have that specific shot, you could say Durier pensively types on his computer, and it would be. I'm implying extra. I'm implying tone without
pensively though, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I can't spell.
Well, yeah, I think that's right.
I think so.
It's expensively on his computer. Period. It would be capitalized because it is the first time that Durier shows up in the script. But with that, you're implying what the camera angle would imply without directly saying this needs to be this specific shot.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Can we do another example of this? A more like 100%. One? Because I think for me, when it comes to directing because that was a big hurdle for me when I first started writing in screen. It was like, I'm not supposed to tell the camera what to do. And I would have all these things in my head about revealing. So can we do one of those? Because that I find is really difficult, is when you're trying to use the camera direction as a means to build suspense or mystery. I think a lot of people get confused as to what they can and can't do. Like, well,
Yeah, I mean, yes. And I will preface this by saying that this is not a genre that I typically write in, so take what I'm saying with a grain of salt.
Okay.
Because just as a disclaimer. Because So do you have an example in mind of
I can think of one. That whole refrigerator thing, that's like the horror movie trope, right? So like boop, 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 got me writing on the fly.
Welcome to the world. So we have Sarah stands in the living room and heads towards the kitchen. Okay.
I'm changing locations already. Whatever.
No, you're good. Do your thing. Because you can absolutely have multiple locations within a teaser, especially if you're moving between rooms.
It'd be continuous, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So she's opening the refrigerator. All right, so Sarah's sitting in the living room and she heads towards the kitchen. I'm just reading this, don't listen to me, keep typing through your thing. We follow closely behind her. So we're now in the kitchen. She opens the refrigerator door to grab a snack. We're tight on her face. After a moment, she grabs an apple and the jar of peanut butter, then the jar of peanut butter closes the door? Oh.
Okay. Did you just try to shade me?
No. I was about to say
it. Then she closes the door.
Okay, got it. The comma is what I was. Okay. So there's a close up as she jumps back. The camera pans to reveal her sister, who is her twin and evil.
Right. Oh, that's it.
Okay,
Look, this is on the fly. I just came up with this right now.
No. You're good. Okay. So.
Yeah, I don't have to write it.
What?
But yeah.
So
I had more though. Go ahead.
No,
so this is what I'm talking about. Like, it's a horrible example. I'm sorry. But
no.
In a situation like this, how would I write it so that because I'm telling the camera what to do right here. I'm telling the camera what to do right here. I'm also telling the camera what to do here. And I'm telling the camera what to do right here. So how could I write this whole sequence without once telling the camera what to do?
Okay. How important is it that you watch that movement into the kitchen from the living room?
Hold on 1 second. You said how important is the what now?
So based on what you're writing, the emotional beats that I get that you're trying to hit are that it's a normal day. She's living her normal life.
Absolutely.
She's going to make a snack, and then all of a sudden something crazy happens.
Something shocks her, jolts her. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
So that's your beginning,
middle,
to climax, and yeah. Okay. So with that, I would start with her doing something normal in the living room. Like if you want, so let's say hypothetically the cross from the living room to the kitchen is very important and you want to keep that. Then let's say Sarah sits on the couch in the living room reading a novel.
Okay.
Her stomach grumbles.
It would separate be a shot, or can I keep right here?
Nope. Yeah, new action line.
Okay.
She sighs.
Same one.
I would separate them personally.
Really?
Yeah, because it would be
each one is a different shot.
Yeah, if each one is a different shot, then it would be her stomach grumbles, so like close up on the stomach, but you're not going to put that, and then close up on, and then either mid shot, wide shot, whatever. On her, she sighs, stands up, and crosses to the kitchen.
Now that one is the same altogether.
Correct. Yeah. So then I would switch to interior house, kitchen, day, or continuous.
Look at me.
I get it. It's all good.
Go ahead.
Will you scroll up a little bit so I can see what your previous action was? Okay. So in this section, other than hungry, how is she feeling? Just calm and normal?
Yeah.
Okay. So she crosses to the fridge and lazily starts making a sandwich. It's a normal day. Everything's chill.
Okay. A snadwich.
A snadwich, my favorite kind.
Okay.
And then you're having this the twin pops out right after she closes the door, or when she?
That's generally that's the trope. Is like, you know, right after there's a door that's open and we can't see it, and then they close the door and there's somebody there. So I was just thinking about that.
Okay.
We can do it differently. I just want, like, yeah, you get the gist of it. We can do it differently though.
So okay, this next section is how I would do it, but also disclaimer: there are many ways to approach this.
Right.
As she closes the door, new shot. She gasps, dropping the sandwich. Yeah.
Did I capitalize this or no?
Yes.
Yes. Now we're capitalizing this to put emphasis on it, so that way the camera, director, cinematographer knows that this part is important.
Correct.
And so they can play with it how they want to play it. They can tell this part of the story however they want to, but that just lets them know it's important, and this lets us know that it is exciting. So we don't have to tell them anything else other than using these little clues to give them hints.
Correct.
Okay, fair. So then,
so she.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'm looking to see if you gave her sister a name.
Candace,
yes. She's dropping the sandwich. It's Candace in all caps. Comma, or you can do dashes, that's fine too. 20s, sallow, creepy.
Sallow, is that a word? I don't know that word.
Yeah. 20s, comma, sallow, comma, creepy.
Thank you. Sallow threw me off, dude.
Oh, sorry. Surprise. I've been doing these word a day things, and it's been really great for expanding my
anybody watching, that is an excellent idea. If you just look up one word a day, and that will expand your vocabulary.
There's a really great app that they do a word a day situation, and they give you the definition, synonyms, use it in a sentence, and then they'll do a push notification so you look at it.
Writers, get on it.
Yeah.
Also, if there's anybody who's joining us now, we're also taking questions live. If you have a question about writing, specifically screenwriting or writing a teaser, please ask the question and we will answer it. Go ahead, continue, Liz.
Yeah. So
then this is
looking at. Yeah. So looking at the two side by side, you're communicating the same emotional beats. You're just not telling the camera what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Did that make it bigger so where we can see all of it?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yes, because up here at the top, we're literally dictating everything the camera does. Follow, tight, close up, camera pans, reveals. Down here, we're just writing it based on how we want it to feel and the experience that the audience should be going off of. So this way, once it gets to the next steps of production, they still have a say in how that happens. So there's still collaboration going on. Whereas if you do it this way, you're taking a lot of other people's opportunities to have their eyes, ears, minds in the mix of the creative process.
And you're also kind of cheating them out of your experience, because by bringing in all the technical stuff, you're making your DP think about like, oh gosh, they want that specifically. How am I going to accomplish that? And then they're not thinking about your story. Whereas if you're taking them through the emotional beats as you want them to be presented, then they get to experience it, enjoy your story, and then we can approach it from a technical perspective.
Excellent. Okay, let's try another question. That was good. Anyone watching, any more questions, please let us know. Let us know if that made sense or if it was confusing as hell.
Sure, let me know. Drop it in chat. We are here for you. I know one thing that pops up typically is, do I have to live in LA to be working as a writer? The answer is no, not necessarily. For screenwriting, you can kind of pick between New York and LA. The different markets have different types of TV shows, different types of writers' rooms. So it depends on whether or not you want to. It depends on how you want to work it. Typically, a lot of writers start off as writers' PAs, and then work up to writers' assistants, and then to script editors, story editors, and then staff writers, and then showrunners. That's the typical gradation of roles. But there's other ways to get in as well, especially if you know people in the industry. A lot of the writers' rooms right now are online. So I think there's a little bit of leeway in terms of where you are geographically, but I do think that is set to change once COVID it does whatever it's going to do. And so then it's just a matter of deciding what type of TV you want to be involved in and where those writers' rooms are. In terms of writing other things, if you want to be a novelist, if you want to be a poet, if you want anything, you can do that in your own free time. You can write from home, make sure that you do like a little bit every day, work on your craft. But that's not specific to a location as much.
Okay, so our next question, I'm gonna go with this one. It says, actually, I'm gonna go with this one. It says you often caution against a lot of voiceover narration, particularly long narration speeches on page 1. But what about Shawshank Redemption? Ooh.
Oh gosh.
Sure.
Okay.
I just want to chime in on this. And we're not like freaking Steven Spielberg. No, he didn't write. Does he write?
Steven Spielberg?
Yeah, he writes. No, just directed. I'm not Woody Allen. I'm not Spike Lee. I'm not, but I think the reason that you want to shy away from voiceover narration is generally because that seems like a cop-out. It seems like instead of finding an interesting way to give the audience that information, you just give it to them. And generally the other way, a different way of finding a way to give the audience that information is going to be not only more compelling, it's probably going to help drive your story a lot more as well. Liz? Yeah,
but I do have a couple exceptions for that. Okay. First example would be The Handmaid's Tale. Voiceover, so basically I tend to dislike voiceover as a device unless it has a very specific purpose. In The Handmaid's Tale, the voiceover is used for June to speak to the audience because she lives, spoiler if you haven't seen it, Gilead is an oppressive society and she as a woman has limited rights. And so there are certain things that she can speak out loud in her world, and there are certain things that have to be internalized. And so those things that are internalized are specifically put into voiceover so we as the audience can have insight into her train of thought, how she's feeling in the moment, and that. So because there's that separation of internal versus external, that's one specific instance where I don't necessarily mind the voiceover, and it's only used in those instances, and it's established early that that's what that is. Same thing with Fleabag. And Fleabag, actually, the interesting thing is that Fleabag is by Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Great show if you haven't watched it. And her character talks to the audience pretty much consistently. But in the final season, she stops talking to the audience. And that's the biggest shift for her character. So in situations like that, if it's informative or it serves a specific purpose as a device, totally keep it in. But otherwise, I definitely agree with you.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does to me because I feel like, if it's necessary, and there's a lot of like things that people want to do that they think are necessary that are not necessary. You really have to ask yourself, what is the story I'm telling? What best serves the story I'm telling? But you also have to make it entertaining. Sometimes voiceovers are not entertaining. I'm just being honest. Sometimes they're not entertaining because it doesn't give me as an actor an opportunity to express what's not being expressed vocally. It gives, and it takes away a lot of the interesting and the intrigue and the fun of whatever's happening. It's one of those show don't tell kind of things. Yeah. What would be an example of a show that you've watched where you thought that the voiceover was completely unnecessary? I know I just put you on the spot. I know because they're definitely out there, but now I can't think of anything with a voiceover. I don't know why How I Met Your Mother came up in my head. Did that show have a voiceover? It did, yeah. And I don't think it needed one at all. That's interesting. Okay. I don't think it needed one because if you took the voiceover out of that show, would you have understood it? Well, the general basis is that the show is the dad telling the kids how he met the mother. Which so I feel like I could see why you would use
it as
I
like
think the little moments in between the episodes where you're talking to the kids were enough. I don't think we actually needed voiceover, but that's just me. I don't think it hurt the show, but I don't think it was necessary. I feel like when you use it, like the example you gave about The Handmaid's Tale, to me, is like one of the most brilliant. It's like, here's a good example. I don't even think they did voiceover in Titanic, did they? The only time we heard the only time we heard Old Rose talk was when it was actually the actress, correct? It was Old Rose.
I think so.
I can't remember. I think that maybe there was a moment or two, but I think with the voiceover you have to be careful, and when you do it, I say don't lean on it.
Yes, especially for exposition. It's really, really easy to lean on voiceover for exposition purposes and trying to give the audience details that they don't really want to hear. But if they don't really want to hear, why do you need to tell it to them? Right? Like, there's other ways to communicate that, basically.
And I think it's always more intriguing if you're prompted to reveal something through voiceover or flashback. Whatever that is that you're trying to reveal will be 20 times more interesting if you reveal it through conflict and dialogue. I promise you. Okay, let's move on to the next question.
Or behavior.
Or behavior, absolutely. We just answered that one. Okay. It says, it's been recommended to limit spec scripts to 120 pages or less, but I've seen dozens of produced scripts that were over 120 pages. What gives?
Are we talking for screenplays, I'm assuming?
It's not specified.
It's not specified. No, you're 100% correct. I'm looking at the page now.
Yeah, it's not specified.
I mean, I think if you were writing a movie and let's say the typical thing is that a page equals a minute of screen time. And if you're writing a movie, I think it's important to keep your script under 120 pages for the first couple of drafts that you do, specifically because that's a lot to put your audience through. There are movies that are longer, like Titanic being one of them, King Kong was another one. But how many of those longer movies have people sat through where they didn't come out the other side and they were like, oh my gosh, that was a long movie and I couldn't pay attention to all of it.
Pearl Harbor. It was good.
Yeah, it was good, but it was very long.
I saw it one time, but it was good.
Yeah, the Avengers movies, I think, are a caveat to that because I think they have to be long because the source material is so detailed. And I think adaptations are different because you're trying to make that fit. But if it's your original story, I would not recommend having it be more than 120 pages or 2 hours, just for right now. I think if you become established, and I think if you become a big name, if you are the next Steven Spielberg, you can write 400 pages. Do your best life. But for right now, as a beginning writer, I would challenge you to see how succinctly you can tell your story without going over 120 pages.
Which actually brings me to the next question. I kind of did want to say something. You might have already said it. You did say that the reason for that is like you're basically looking at a minute per page.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Excuse me. Okay. So my next question is this, and this is a question that I have, and I've asked it a few times. I still struggle with it. How do you write concise action, specifically when it is things like a fight sequence or magic or a car chase and all those things? So how do you write that while still being interesting? Because to me, I always get lost in this. I want whoever's reading the script to be so enthralled in the script itself that they're seeing something visual, and sometimes I over-explain.
Sure.
That doesn't translate well to when you're actually physically making the script. So how do I make it succinct but still be entertaining without making it feel boring?
I think that's a very good question that I don't have 100% of the answers to. However, I will say one thing that I do whenever I'm trying to write something that I haven't been through a class that is like, this is how you do this. Go look up the scripts of comparable projects. And see how they wrote those sequences, and then use that as a guide as to how to write yours. So, like, for example,
I'm gonna while you're talking, I'm gonna type something, and then we'll
go through it. Okay. Yeah. there's a really great website called Script Slug, SCRIPTSLUG. Type it into Google, it'll pop up. It has a lot of PDFs of pilots, but also other episodes of television shows. So start reading scripts that are similar to what you want to write, and see how they accomplish that, and then use that as your tool to how to format yours. But also keep in mind that when you're writing action, it's kind of similar to how we walked it through before. You're hitting the specific emotional beats that are going to take your reader through your story. And I'm curious to see what your example is.
It's going to take me a little bit of time to write it, so I'm actually
okay.
Because I wasn't prepared.
Yeah. No, you're good.
Oh, this is actually a great question. You tell us to be careful about early flashbacks in a script, but I saw a couple of early flashbacks in a recent successful movie. Why or why not should I do this? Now, when you use flashbacks, actually, I'm gonna type. Go ahead.
I'm so curious as to what you're about to say. When you use flashbacks, can you tell me
flashbacks? Well, because when I was writing The Prophecy the first time, there's this. Every single version of that script I had a flashback in. Even the version I have now has a flashback. It's just this big. It's a little bit longer, but I don't like to start with flashbacks because sometimes it's the same thing as the whole idea about that we just said about voiceovers. Find a better way to look at it. I feel like but sometimes it has to be a flashback.
Yeah, sometimes it does. So somebody told me once that as a general guideline, you don't tell your audience about the past until they already care about the present. And there's obviously like exceptions to that rule, but I think that flashbacks, especially in TV shows, can be beneficial, but you have to focus on the story you're telling right now. So like Dead to Me is a really good example of that, because they didn't start introducing flashbacks until probably episode 2 or 3. Dead to Me on Netflix, great dramedy show. And so by that point, you knew the world, you knew the characters, you knew the conflict, you knew everything, and it wasn't used specifically as an exposition vehicle. I think that's a big pitfall that a lot of writers get into, is that when they're writing their pilot, they want to have all of these flashbacks to just kind of indicate, well, this is my character's backstory, this is what they've been through, this is what led us to this moment. But I think it's important to remember and really kind of ask yourself the question of how necessary is that information right now, and how does it inform the story that I'm currently telling with this current conflict. And if you do use flashbacks, it does need to move your story forward. It's just, I think, just don't make it too expositional. That's the easy trap. And then if you do end up using a flashback early in your series, try to keep it short and try to keep it succinct. Because if you're just bopping back and forth between past and present, your audience is also going to be a little bit confused, because if there's no production design difference between the two, then how do you know? This Is Us is another example of that. This Is Us relies heavily on flashbacks, but they set that precedent from day one that every episode was going to be very clearly split between past and present, and that's what drives that story, because they're essentially unwinding a ball of yarn of character development. But in other shows, it's kind of a crutch in a way, because it just, in my opinion, is not necessary. So hopefully that answers that question.
Okay. I didn't get it right as much as I wanted to, because but
I can do another question. Do you want
no, please, yes. Do you want me to find the question, or you can find it?
Oh, I got you. Don't worry. No worries. Yeah. Common question: when can I quit my day job?
That's actually a good question to answer.
Don't.
Don't.
I say that as a joke. I say that with love. I mean, I think it's important to balance your life between writing and otherwise. I think if you let's say hypothetically you sell a script, you sell your show and you make a ton of money. There's no guarantee that show is going to get picked up past its pilot. There's no guarantee that people are going to like it, and there's no guarantee that it's going to go for multiple seasons. And so while you're getting a really great paycheck in that moment, there's the rest of your life that you have to think about. So I would say keep your day job until your monetary situation gets to the point where you don't need it necessarily, but the money that you're making is, I don't know. I mean, this is tricky because I as a person am very, 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 very weird about money. Like I tried doing acting for a long time, and there's not a lot of money in that. So I very much advocate for like, keep your expenses on a budget, keep your head on straight in terms of what your boundaries are financially, and don't get too excited because things are going well. It's great that things are going well, but just be careful. So yeah, let's see. What other questions do we have? What is it like having an agent? I do not have an agent as a writer, but I can say that it's great to have an advocate. I think that you kind of adjust your expectations in terms of an agent, because it doesn't mean that you're constantly going to have a free flow of jobs or a free flow of opportunities. They have a lot of clients, and you are one of them. And so it's a relationship that you're fostering. If you're starting out and you're looking for an agent, you can start out by submitting your scripts to places like Coverfly or Script Revolution or Blacklist, and get the feedback and see if you can get on those lists, submit to festivals, and see if somebody notices you and picks you up based off of that. You can also look at smaller boutique agencies and see if they take open submissions. Some do, a lot don't. And so really get your work out there, network, and try to talk to people, and eventually somebody will find you. Almost there? Nikki, okay.
Yes, I'm almost literally.
How long does it take till you see your first success? That can vary depending on the person. Very much like acting, it's a catch. It's a huge catch in terms of that. Like, there's no guarantee. There are people in the industry that have tons and tons and tons of scripts and don't have any of them picked up or sold or worked. There are people that only have a couple scripts and they got it picked up like that. So I mean, what the adage is success equals preparation meets opportunity. So just be ready and hop on that when it does come, and don't be afraid, and don't second guess yourself as a human, and smile, and it'll be good.
Okay. Good.
What you got? Talk to me. Okay.
Okay, I got something. I whipped something up real quick. Don't judge me, y'all watching. I tried to real quick. Okay.
Great.
All right. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay. You should. If I do this, is it better?
Can you zoom in a little bit for me?
Yeah.
There we go. That's a lot better.
Okay.
I'm getting old.
So we're gonna read it real quick. All right. Marcus stands with his hand on his sword. His chest heaves as he faces his opponent. Clarice has blood dripping from her lips, but she stands upright. She appears less bruised than him, but behind her eyes, we can see her strength is fading. Suddenly, Marcus launches toward her, swinging his sword wildly. She ducks the first attacks and then his second swipes. They trade. The two trade blows for a moment before she gets the upper hand. She grabs his wrist, pulls it back, then punches him mid-sternum. He topples over, dropping his sword. Clarice rolls toward the weapon, scoops it up, and turns to face him. Marcus is quick on his feet, just enough time to see her launch the sword his way. He flips and twists through the air as the sword whizzes by him, grazing the skin on his cheek. He gracefully lands on both feet and one hand on the ground for balance and looks to his adversary with a sly smirk. Is that your best?
Nice.
Now, so I really would have made it more like overly explanatory, but I didn't want to have to sit there for it. So the points that I'm talking about is like specifically, this area was a little bit, or you do agree that this is maybe a little bit too explaining? Because I'm doing too much explaining where the fight choreographer would come up with a lot of this. So the fact that she ducks and trade blows. Right. So how would I write just this part? What would I rewrite there?
They exchange blows.
Boom. Boom. Because I wouldn't have written that. What I wrote was what I would have written.
And then I would say one blow catches Marcus, or something just to indicate why that line is there.
Yes. And this would be another line, wouldn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Every line is a different shot.
Is how it was explained to me.
Is okay. So then, what about this section? Would you change anything down here?
Much as the metals over dripping your swords. Catches Marcus, because you have it hitting 2 spots, I would indicate where it catches him above the line. Catches Marcus on the cheek, I think is what you said, across the face.
This one?
No. What was it's two blows.
No.
One hits. Oh, it's just the one?
Yeah, they exchange blows. One blow catches Marcus Smith's sternum, so I guess I would take this one out.
Take that one out. Yeah.
And then he topples over.
Dropping
Clarice rolls toward the weapon and scoops it up. So this is fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
This is fine for the people at home because everything here is necessary.
Mm-hmm.
This might not be necessary.
Rolls toward. Yeah, you don't need it. It's fun. You can keep it in for now because it paints the picture.
Okay.
But I would be open to it changing.
Okay.
And Marcus is quick on his feet, just enough to. You can take that out.
What? Just this?
The whole thing.
The whole line.
Yeah, because it's one implied that because it's a quick fight, so he's gonna be quick on his feet.
Okay. But why the sword throw? Because she has to launch the sword, so I would want to keep this though.
Right. Well, so then I would say Clarice rolls towards the weapon, scoops it up, and launches it towards Marcus, and just condense that. Because if you're taking time to split that out and describe it, it also breaks up the momentum at which you read it. So if you just want to keep it as a fast-paced fight, be like hit.
Got you.
Yeah.
The weapon, scoops it up in her line. Scoops it up, and launches it toward Marcus. He flips. I don't even need this then.
Twisted. I mean, that's pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. Let's see. He flips, twists through the air. The sword was it by him. He flips, and as he twists, the sword grazes his cheek. Is what I would condense into. Again, caveat: this is not the genre that I typically write in. So if y'all are watching at home and you're like, I disagree, totally fair. This is just my interpretation of this in this moment to make it more concise and easily flowing.
Right. Remember, and I'm just kind of reiterating what you just said. It's not about right or wrong. It's about efficiency, but still keeping it entertaining. So we want the fight scene to feel like a fight scene, and too much air in it. Wah wah. So this is how we make it a little quicker. He graciously lands a little sweet. Okay, what about this line?
Let's see, just the sword grazes his cheek. For balance, what is it? He flips, and as he twists the sword grazes the cheek. He lit. For balance. I don't mind that.
This one you don't.
I don't mind that. Yeah,
Why?
that doesn't bother me. Why? Because you have 1, 2, 3 different actions happening in one stanza, and it's not. There's not so much detail that it makes me unhappy. If that's so, like if let's say from the beginning of the fight, Marcus launches towards her, swinging his sword wildly. They exchange blows. One blow catches Marcus. He topples. She rolls, scoops it up, launches it. He flips, he twists, he lands on the ground, both feet. He gracefully lands on both feet, one hand on the ground for balance. Okay, then I would actually, hold on, now that I'm reading this whole thing, I would flip that a bit. He flips. I'm sorry, this is the way that
No. Because this is great. This is because honestly, like this is the kind of stuff that for me personally, I need this. But I'm sure people at home who are writing, that's hard. Like you want to keep it entertaining but concise. So go ahead.
Yeah. So it's pop, pop, pop. He falls. He rolls towards it, scoops it up, and launches it towards Marcus. He flips. He gracefully lands on both feet. Comma. One hand on the ground. Period. He looks to his adversary with a wide smirk, or with a sly smirk, is how I would do that. because you can pretty much imply what that's going to look like. Like everybody knows the hero stance.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
look up. Like you know what that. Yeah. So
You know that stance.
yeah. So you don't need all of the descriptors to fully do that. You just need to know that that's what's happening.
Got you. Okay. So would you change anything up here at the top?
Who stands with his? Yes. So
What would you change?
first line, Marcus stands with his hands on his sword, comma, chest heaving.
Ooh.
You could say chest heaving as he faces his opponent. You could keep that whole thing if you wanted.
Okay.
And it just condenses it. Stands with his hand on his sword, chest heaving as he faces his opponent. Clarice's blood dripping from her lips, but she stands upright. You can condense this one also.
Okay.
To Clarice stands upright, blood dripping from her lips. Less bruised, but her strength is fading, is how I would shorten that.
Can I say less bruised than him?
How important is that comparison? Like what is that also like
it would be in my head the way I envisioned this scene that I just whipped up is that she's kicking his ass, essentially. So
okay, so we're picking up, this is not the beginning, we're picking up like mid-fight.
In the middle of the fight, yes.
Got it. Okay, well then in that case, saving as they face his opponent, Clarice's blood dripping from her lips. Less bruised than him, but behind her eyes we can see her strength is fading. I don't mind that, but I would most likely end up changing it depending on how the previous sequence was written. If that
I was thinking this would be the first thing we're seeing.
But I thought you're saying that they've been fighting.
Yes, like we're coming into the fight and they've been fighting, but this is the first the audience is seeing. We don't see
what's the moment before?
Oh, see, look, I whipped this scene up, and now
I know that's what I'm saying. Is
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
Depending on your answer to that question is how I would approach this.
Okay. Okay. Well, then,
so for now, it looks fantastic.
So the new version of it reads a lot quicker. Marcus stands with his hands on his sword, chest heaving as he faces his opponent. Everything that's just necessary, but it's still exciting. Clarice has blood dripping from her lips, less bruised than him, but behind her eyes, you can see her strength is fading. Suddenly, Marcus launches toward her, swinging his sword wildly. They exchange blows. One blow catches Marcus mid-sternum. He topples over, dropping his sword. Clarice rolls toward the weapon, scoops it up, and launches it towards Marcus. He flips, and as he twists, the sword grazes his cheek. He gracefully lands on both feet, one hand on the ground. He looks to his adversary with a sly mark. Is that your best?
There you go. And the funny thing is that your instinct is to read that faster than you did the first round, because you feel the momentum of the fight as it's happening.
Yes. Okay, Liz. Okay.
So yeah.
All right. I see it. Yeah, I see it. But honestly, it's true. It's weird that being less descriptive made it more exciting.
Because sometimes more description just complicates it. And it makes your brain, as the reader, start filling in things that don't need to be filled in that moment. And so if you just keep it concise, then you take their hand and you just lead them on that story journey. Okay.
Well, okay, excellent. So, alrighty. Let's do one more question and then we'll wrap it up. If anyone watching has a question, we're wrapping up here soon. If you give us a question, we will answer it right now. So
not later, right now.
If it's somewhere and we find it in the comments later, we'll definitely answer it if we can.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Let me see. That one.
Do you have any questions? Like you as a person? I know we've been going through this list. Yes.
I like this question actually. It says, when it comes to readability, some scripts are actually difficult to get to read. I actually read one recently that to me it wasn't an interesting read, and it's one of my favorite movies. How does that movie get made? Is the question that this person asked.
So the script itself is not easy to read, but it gets made regardless. Probably because they're a name, or someone is a name and they read it and they know the person and they're attached to it. Like that's
Mm-hmm. It sucks because when I first started writing, it was like I would look at all these examples. People would tell me what not to do, and I would see all these examples of that happening, and it's like, what the hell? But that's what it is. Like, it's a business just like any other business. So there are people who know people. Your connections and your networking is very important. You could be as talented as hell, but if you can't get in that sell yourself or have one in your corner that can help sell you, you're selling yourself short. So even stuff like this, like me and her are not freaking like I said, we're not Steven Spielberg and freaking Spike Lee, but getting information and sharing in these kind of situations, there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I'm saying? Like asking questions and maybe, you know, asking questions, reading books. A good book to read is Save the Cat. There's so many books online on screenwriting, script writing, creative writing. There's courses, all that stuff. Just consume as much as you can. And while you're doing that, be friendly. Because you never know a writer, like in the writer's room, you never know who in that writing room could one day blow up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just networking just means like being professional and being kind and treating people with the type of energy that you want to be treated with, so that they'd be excited to work with you.
Yeah. And when you're starting out as a writer, find yourself a group of people that are going to hold you accountable and that are going to be rising up in the industry with you. And that's your crew. That's the people that are going to have your back, because it's not an easy industry at all. There's going to be ups and downs and everything in between. And if you have that group of people that are in the trenches with you, then you're going to feel better about it on your day-to-day. And then also they're going to be the people that you collaborate when one of y'all does strike it big.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so in conclusion, thank you all for being here. Woe Nelly Media, and you can find us on woenellymedia.com. And let me actually, it's spelled in interesting ways. I'm going to put that up on the screen for y'all. You can find us at woenellymedia.com, and you can find our group on Facebook, The Writer's Room, just like it's spelled. I believe it's actually the only one on Facebook called The Writer's Room. So we should be hard to find. If you look us up, we do these events every Saturday at 6 o'clock, like clockwork. If you want your script to either be featured as a live reading, or we do also where we read and give feedback on scripts. We have a roundtable that we do. If you'd like to be a part of the critiquing and roundtabling, or if you just want to listen to one of the live scripts, please join the group. Please connect with us, admin at woenellymedia.com. And thanks to Liz for always sharing her wisdom and knowledge and being such an integral part of the Wine and Read series. Tell your friends, tell your family. Is there anything you want to say before we head out?
No, thank you for having me on here. And you guys keep writing, keep working, do your pages.
Yes. Always show up, all right? Talk to you later.
Are we still live?